So now that Lombok is configured and working in our project, we can start using it. What we're going to do is refactor some parts of the project to use Lombok with the intention of removing some of this boilerplate code that we've already created. So we're going to start with the game impl class. So I'm going to open that up, game impl. And if we look at this class at the moment, if I scroll down to the bottom, you can see it's got around about nearly 130 lines of code there, 126 lines, if I delete that last blank line. And noticing there that also there were some getters, or quite a few getters and setters and so forth there. So let's start optimizing this now with Lombok. So what we're going to do first is get rid of the logger and add the SLF4J annotation. So I'm going to delete the logger, then at SLF4J, class level. There's a logger added now by Lombok. So we've got some fields here like guess count, number, and guess, and others. And we saw earlier in the video that almost all these fields have got a getter method. That's the get, guess count, get number, and so on. Now with Lombok we can remove all these getters, but we have to be careful because, for example, the field number generator doesn't have a getter. So one way of solving this is to add the getter annotation on every field except number generator, but there is actually a better solution. With the getter annotation, what we can do is specify the access level of generated methods. In other words, we can use the getter on the field that doesn't need a getter and then set that particular access to none, and then add the getter annotation at class level. So let's go and do that and see how that works. I'm going to come down and add the getter annotation to the class. So by default, that's going to give all the fields in the class a getter. But again, we don't want to add a getter for number generator. So what we can do there is come down here on the number generator, above the number generator field, and we can put getter. Then it's time in parentheses, we can type access level and select .none. So access level .none. So now Lombok won't generate a getter for the number generator, but even if we did generate it though, it would be okay in this case. But since we don't actually need it, it's good practice to actually indicate that with this getter annotation at field level with access level of none. Now there's also other access levels that we can use. They're public, protected, and private. In other words, they specify the access modifier for the getter. Right, so the next step now that we've added the getter at class level is to remove the getters from our class. So we can scroll down now and remove these getter code because we no longer need it. So let's start with get number, get guess. We'll remove both of those. Then we want to come down here to smallest. Let's get rid of that as well. So we've got smallest, biggest, get remaining guesses, and guess count. I can get rid of all four of those as well. And the other one we can get rid of is the is valid number range. So having done that, you can see that our line count's now gone down to 92. So we've saved about 35 lines of code. Around about 25% of the file we no longer need to maintain directly because Lombok's going to do that for us. So the last part of this particular class we can remove is the setter method. This is the set guess method. This one here. So let's actually remove that as well. Delete the setter. If we scroll up to the top now, you can see we're getting an error because we're not fully implementing the game interface anymore. So of course what we need to do then is add that to our guess field. We need to add the setter. So at setter, add the setter annotation to guess, and you can see now that the code is now valid. We're not getting any errors anymore. Now the way that I've placed that though, that could be a bit confusing. You might think that the setter annotation will apply to all fields below it, but it's really just applying to the field that's got the annotation and not any other fields below that. So in other words, in this case, only the guess field is affected. So what I would suggest you do in that scenario is put these down the bottom. So I'm going to cut that out of there and come down and paste that down here, just so it's really clear that the setter annotation is only applying to the guess field. I think this is the way that we've placed that code now. It looks less confusing. So again, we've saved about 25% of the code base by doing what we've done in this one class. And that's really 30 lines of code that we don't need to write or maintain. This is obviously only a fairly straightforward and simple class. You can imagine that the savings could be a lot higher if you're actually using a much larger class, or you have a much larger class. All right, importantly though, once we've done this change, we want to run this to make sure that it still works. So let's run the code. Okay, looks like our game is still working. Okay, you can see that the game is clearly still working. Okay,